change the color to your interior? Can you just paint it? Or is there something special you need? We'll talk about that and more when we get back. I'm Tim Johnson. This is Shop Tool Reviews. Our work truck was in need of a new console lid. It was all broken up, and a friend of ours actually had one, but it was in the tan vinyl color, which ours is gray. So we knew what to do. We needed to get some paint and some dye specifically for fabrics or for vinyl. Something that's pliable, that's going to move a little bit, that's not going to crack when you put your arm down on it. So we thought, you know what, let's do a video on this. I've actually been doing interior work, helping my dad for pretty much most of my life. He's been doing it most of his life. So I've done this a time or two, and there's some do's and don'ts when you look at dyeing or painting fabrics, leathers, vinyls, things like that. When you're looking at velours and carpets and things like that, you can go with like a RIT dye or like a powdered dye where you mix with water, sponge it on, or mix it with a substance and kind of sponge it on or kind of paint it on, but more of a brush or sponge type. But when it comes to vinyl or leather, typically a spray on some type of a solvent base is going to do a better job at adhering to the surface, but there's still some tips that you need to follow, and that's what we thought we'd show you. So let's go ahead and dig in, and then we'll come back. Today it is how to dye or how to spray vinyl, plastic, what have you, interior of your vehicle. Got this center console here. It's a lid for a truck. The interior is actually a dark charcoal gray or a medium gray, and obviously this is tan or khaki or sandstone, whatever you want to call this. Anyway, we got it taped up, got the plastic taped off. It's all gray or black, but we need the vinyl turned gray. And you can buy the right lid, or you can actually dye it, or in this case, spray it. So something like a vinyl, it's really not going to be conducive to like a liquid dye, or something, you know, that you kind of sponge on. However, there's some sprays. Sims is a great product, or SEM, but typically you can only buy that from a distributor or online. Most of the part stores carry the Duplicolor brand with their vinyl and fabric spray, but there's some really there's some key tips that you need to know when you're spraying vinyl. And I'm telling you, I don't care what you're spraying, what brand, if you don't follow this, it's just not going to stick and it's not going to look good. First thing is clean, just like any paint jobs, and then degrease it. So I'm just taking a little degreaser here and just kind of wiping over it. By the way, I've already cleaned it and degreased it. But anyway, so make sure you clean it. Make sure it's cleaned really good with like soap and water. Dry it off very well. And then make sure you get any waxes. And by the way, if it's new vinyl will definitely have some waxes on it, things like that. So make sure you get all that out. Then we want to make sure we shake this well. And by the way, with spray paint, roll that marble around the bottom. Make sure there's no gunks on the bottom, as well as shaking it. So once we got that shook well, here is tip number one. You have to do light coats. I'm telling you, you have to. And I'm talking about very light coats. You got to kind of give it a base to stick to. If you don't do this, it'll basically peel right off. So I'm literally, you can see, you can kind of test on your paper there that it's actually spraying. But I'm literally just going to dust this just to get this. I mean, I'm not even going to turn it gray. I'm just putting some dots on there, if you will. So you can see there, very little paint on there. And by the way, you may not want to handle it kind of like I'm handling it. I'm kind of manhandling it a little bit. And again, you don't have to worry about getting a lot. By the way, this is the underside. A lot of plastic's going to cover this, but I'll go ahead and shoot some of this. That's all. Now, let that sit. I'm telling you, let it sit. And you only got to let it sit a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back for coat 2 and then coat 3. Okay, so we've let this sit a few minutes. Again, let's shake our paint up. And again, you're not worried about coverage right here. I'm telling you, don't rush this. You just want another light dust coat. And basically, you're creating your own adhesion promoter. And I don't care if you have already used adhesion promoter. I'm telling you, you got to do this. Ask anyone who's tried to spray vinyl before and ask them how long it lasted. And I've done this pretty much my whole life since my father was an auto upholsterer. So we did this a lot for older cars. So let's let that sit a few minutes as well. That's coat number 2. You can see it's starting to turn gray, starting to turn the color we want, but still not there yet. You still see a lot of tan through there. Don't worry about it. We'll get coverage in the next coat. Okay, so coat number 3. Now I'm going to be a little more concerned, not really concerned, but a little more concerned about getting that coverage. So go ahead and kind of start with maybe your backside, you know, maybe kind of the seam areas, if you will, where you really want to make sure that you're covering the tan or whatever color. You may be going, you know, back to the same color. But anyway, now we're worried a little more about coverage. But again, don't soup it up. Don't get it really wet. We're not concerned about that yet. Just a little more concerned about coverage. Maybe making sure that we've got kind of gray everywhere. In my case, gray. You may be shooting black, white, what have you. Okay, so my video cut off on that third coat. But anyway, by now, you should have decent coverage. Now, a couple of things. If you start seeing fish eyes develop, in other words, a little pinhole where the paint doesn't seem to cover, then again, make sure your rag is very clean, but take your degreaser, and I don't have any spots, but let's just say it was right here, and just kind of lightly go over it. You may pull some of the paint off, but again, that's basically a little, if you've got a little fish eye, it's because the paint's not sticking that area. There's a little wax, little grease, some kind of imperfection, and just lightly brush over it with your degreaser, and then again, let it dry. You should have decent coverage by now. I can pick out some areas where we've got a little tan still showing through here, but again, I'm not concerned about it. We're doing nice light coats, and I'm telling you, this is going to turn out really, really well. So again, let's shake up our paint. So now we're under our 4th coat. 3 may do it for you. I really doubt it. If you're putting these things on nice and thin, that's how you want to do it. It's going to adhere to it. It's going to stick to it. It's going to last a long time. So this is 4th coat here. And again, we don't have to lay it on thick, but we can now make sure that we're getting coverage now, because we've got a nice base, and we want to make sure we're hitting down in those areas where we've got, you know, some crevices, some seams like that. And again, if you're seeing any fish eyes on this round, you really ought to stop and address those. And I still don't want to go too heavy, but I want to make sure that I'm covering with color. And again, that's really good for this shot. And I'm still going to do another round. So yeah, I'm going to have 5 coats on here, but they're very light coats. They're drying in between. And you can see I'm getting a nice uniform color. There's no splotchiness here. I don't know if you saw, but when I was spraying just then, you saw kind of a couple little blobs spritz out, but they still leveled out really nicely. I'm not putting too much paint on here. Okay, I wanted to show here while it's drying, you kind of see some leopard spotting, things like that. That's going to happen. Don't touch it. Don't worry about it. Just let these things dry in between coats. They're going to kind of change, and it's going to look dry, and then it's going to start doing this, but just let it sit, and it'll all even out, and then we're going to do another coat, our final coat, and we'll be done. Okay, so now we're ready for our final coat, and I'm even going to go as far as obviously shaking the can, but I'm even going to take a little lacquer thinner or degreaser, and I'm going to clean the tip on my can. I don't want it splatter, and I want a nice coat there, so you can see I got it good and clean. So now I've got that tip ready to go in my can. Make sure it's shook up good. Again, you should be pretty even. By the way, don't mess up like I did. I don't know if you noticed my other gloves. I had like Bondo dust on them or something. I was getting it all over it. Anyway, don't do something stupid like that. Put some new gloves on. So now our underside, our crevices, things like that, we should have decent coverage on there, so we're not going to worry about that anymore. It's time to put that finish coat on so that we know it's going to look good and last. So again, we don't have to go heavy, but we want to make sure that we're getting it everywhere. Again, we can start with the edges and then work in. Once you get it wet, stop. see I'm still getting a little bit of splatter there, and I'm going to go just kind of dust this back over again. And once you get a nice even coverage, you're good to go. And we're going to let that dry. If you got some sunshine to put it in, do that. It's pouring rain here, so I can't set it outside, but you can see you got nice even coverage now, nice uniform color. We'll see what happens after it dries. Again, starting to see leopard spotting here as it's drying. Just let it go. Just let it go ahead and finish drying and it'll be fine. Okay, with it mostly dry, I'm going to go ahead and take this time to take off my tape. Be careful here. You may want to let this fully dry before you do this. I'm just a little impatient. Try not to let it lay on the paint like I just did. Again, probably smarter if you just let it finish drying, but by the way, that's my sweaty hand going on there right there. But as you can see, other than that, we've got a nice color on that lid there. You can't see any signs of tan color or khaki or sandstone, whatever you call that. Even on the other side, pretty much covered. And by the way, another plastic cover pops on here after it goes in the center console with the rod there. That bottom pops on here and covers all this. Nice uniform coverage, and that's going to last as well. That paint's going to stick to that vinyl. You're not going to have to worry about that peeling off or scraping off. It's going to last you for years. So here you have it. Here's the final outcome. It's our new gray center console. You see it's a nice uniform color. When we press on it, it's not going to crack or change colors or rub off or anything like that. So it's adhered really nicely. Using those thin coats is the real key, and making sure that everything's clean and void of any contaminants. So you can buy these cans, I think at the parts store, these may run about $10. I think you can buy them online for $7, $8. Again, you can go with a Duplicolor. They also, SEM makes a good product, SEM. So anyway, vinyl and fabric spray. Make sure you follow our tips and tricks. Keep everything clean. Do very light coats, and it'll stick to it very well and last you a long time. I would let this dry for several days before you put any type of, Armor All or protectant or anything like that on it. After that, feel free to put whatever type of conditioner you use on your interior. But be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you don't mind, hit the like and subscribe button if you like this video. Also, that bell notification, that's going to let you know that new videos are available. Have a great day, and go out and do something nice for someone.